Good morning and welcome to today's segment. My name is Ellie Seilern. I'm a leadership coach and a teacher of Energy Alchemy for business owners. So today I really want to talk about the fundamentals of Energy Alchemy in business. What is it? How do we do it? And why is it such a powerful tool? So let's start with the idea that absolutely everything is made up of energy. Everything that you see and everything that you don't see. Your body, your cells, your skin, the table that you're sitting on, the headphones you might be listening to, everything you see outside, the tides, the moon, the sun, the sky, the trees, everything is made up of energy. And so I'm going to invite you to kind of put that lens on and just look at absolutely everything as vibrating, moving energy for this segment today. So if we know that everything is energy, we can also take quite a practical view and really understanding that it functions differently. Energy functions differently depending on the density and the form that it takes. And so the idea of energy alchemy is that you understand like the quality of energy of something, and depending on the form and the density that it takes, you sort of understand how to work with it. So for example, if you want to pick up a chair and move a chair, let's say you want to create a beautiful dinner party for your family and you need to move a bunch of chairs around a table. You have a clear intention, you pick up the chair and you physically move it. That's how you understand that the chair has a certain level of density and you're using your body and your muscles to pick it up and move it. That's a very different approach to, say, working with fear in the body, where let's say as a business owner, you're about to launch a new project and you feel some trepidation coming up and some fear related to money, for example, and you understand, okay, I want to work on and I want to process this fear. And so your intention is to move and process that stuck fear, that stuck emotion. But obviously it takes a very different form to the chair, even though both are made up of energy. So you're going to use different tools and techniques to work with and move that stuck energy. So really, it's very practical. It's just that foundational understanding that depending on the form and density of the energy, you're going to be deploying different tools and techniques in order to move it. But you're always kind of having a very specific purpose and understanding this is what I want to do. And obviously you cultivate and develop that as your understanding of the energy evolves. But kind of knowing how to work with different forms of energy is a really powerful and practical tool to have at your disposal as you move through life. And I'm going to give you a really tangible example that I love to work with, especially as business owners: boundaries. So boundaries are a really good example of kind of understanding the way that although energy can take many different tangible and intangible forms, all forms of energy have an enormous impact on your experience of life. Boundaries are a fantastic example of that. So boundaries are intangible. We can't see them, and yet we all instinctively understand their function. We can all feel them. Like you can just feel when someone is not respecting your boundaries, and you can feel when somebody has, let's say, very weak boundaries or sort of spongy boundaries. Like we all know what boundaries are, even though they are absolutely an intangible construct. And moreover, boundaries play an enormous role in our lives. Obviously, they play a huge role in your relationships with other human beings, but also in your relationship to anything, like your relationship to the space around you, your relationship to watching television, your relationship to food, your relationship to social media. Absolutely everything that you encounter in life, whether it's in front of you or not, whether it's tangible or not, you're in relationship to it. Like you're in relationship to everything in your life. And the moment that you step into a relationship with something, which is simply a kind of shift where you're like, oh, I wonder what my relationship to this thing is, then there's a boundary. And you can examine the quality and the integrity of the boundary between you. And instead of kind of looking at that as some kind of an intangible construct, I want you to put that energy lens on again, like the goggles where you see everything as energy. And I want you to understand that where you end and that thing begins is the boundary. And that when you're able to kind of look at it that way, you can assess and refine the integrity and the efficacy of that boundary. So that's the what. So the question is how? How do we do that? The first thing to do is to start to understand, where do you end and where does the rest of the world begin? Where does your personal space end and where does the rest of the world begin? Because there is a boundary there. So usually, like, you have a field, like a personal space, like an emanation of yourself around your body. So you have your physical body and you have your energy body, which is usually around an arm's width around you. But of course, that can be changed. So just try now, like, stretch your arms out, an arm's width around you, and imagine yourself centered in that, like the yolk of an egg. This is your personal space. This is your boundary. This is the boundary of your energy body. This is your energetic boundary. And everything that happens on the inside of this, i.e., within your personal space, is under your dominion. You have full control over it, and you have responsibility for that. Everything outside of that boundary is not. It is not under your dominion. You do not have responsibility for it. You do not have control over it. And so it's really understanding your boundary as that meeting point between where your personal space ends and the rest of the world begins, and kind of understanding how to modulate or control the exchange of dynamic energy between the two. And so obviously, like, this might sound a little bit technical. Let's keep it really simple. How much of your personal space are you inhabiting? How much of your personal space are you truly inhabiting? Can you strengthen, radiate, and extend your essence to fill that boundary? Can you strengthen and refine the boundary? Can you strengthen and refine the quality of that boundary itself? When you learn how to assess the quality of that boundary, perhaps you can learn how to strengthen and refine it. And a really simple tool to begin is just simply intending to fill more of that space with more of your presence. So finally, why? Why do we do this? Why am I so passionate about teaching energy alchemy to business owners? Because boundaries is a really good example of this. Back in the day, boundaries and my lack thereof played a massive role in my leadership, in my team leadership, in my self-leadership, in absolutely everything that I did. I could feel so strongly that my boundaries were like out of whack. I could tell because there would be expectations. I would be kind of playing certain roles that I wasn't comfortable in playing. I was often filled with resentment and exhaustion at the end of the day. And I just felt really powerless. Like, I think that's the key word here. Because although I understood that my boundaries were my responsibility, I had absolutely no idea how to change my boundaries. I thought that my boundaries were the end result of kind of a series of behavioral changes that would take ages to put in place. And actually, once I realized that boundaries are simply that energetic meeting point between me and the rest of the world, and that I absolutely have full dominion over my boundaries and I can change and refine them at will, that's when everything changed. That's when everything changed. Once I learned how to fill up and extend and radiate my presence, how to cultivate a quality of presence that meant that I go right up to the brim of my energetic boundary, and that I take full responsibility for everything inside, and that you stay on the outside, that everything else stays on the outside, everything changed. And I want all of us to understand and to be absolute masters at energy alchemy, at knowing like how to work with the space around us, not just through our eyes or through our ears or through our mind, but how to use the full spectrum of our capacities as a human being to understand like the power that you have in your body, the power that you have to physically shape shift the world around you, how to work with potential. So that's why I'm so passionate about this. And boundaries are just a really good example of how this work can have an enormous effect on your experience of life, business, and beyond. So if you'd like to learn more about boundaries and all the other ways that you can consciously shapeshift your life and your business, please sign up to my newsletter. It's a fantastic resource. It's where I really take my time to write kind of more long form articles. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Instagram, have a look at my website. I'm always creating rolling content for you, and I can't wait to show you more tangible ways to work on your boundaries.